I saw this kind of history, even though the leaders got along well personally. It's just the way the system set up and how we go to market didn't incentivize people to work together.
This isn't your average revenue podcast. It's Ashley and Katrina's Infinite Revenue Playlist, powered by Comsor. And it's your new work bestie. Through conversations with other women in the revenue space, Ashley and Katrina get candid about their unique experiences, help women tackle challenges in the workplace, and uncover ways to grow as revenue pros. Maybe you'll learn a little, cry a little, laugh a little, have an epiphany, or at the very least, get a killer playlist to listen to while you work. Being a woman in this industry is wild. Let's talk about it.
Hello, I'm Ashley.
And I'm Katrina.
Welcome to Ashley and Katrina's Infinite Revenue Playlist. Today, we'll be joined by Trinity Nguyen, VP of Marketing at UserGems. Trinity, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Very excited about this one. I actually want to check out all the previous episodes now. I want to know what is it. Who did you have? Nikki Ivy and there was
Jen
one
Allen.
more person. Jen Allen. I was like, I need to know what I'm listening to.
Yes, they're both amazing. So you should definitely check those out for sure. I'm going to go ahead and give our listeners a quick bio on you, Trinity, just so everybody knows who they're listening to this time. Trinity is a B2B marketer with over 10 years of experience in go-to-market strategy, product marketing, sales, demand gen, and ABM. She's passionate about helping technology companies accelerate their growth while also building great teams. She loves all the things SaaS marketing and sales and helps teams kiss pipeline anxiety goodbye. Today, Trinity joins us specifically to chat about how to be a marketer who not only understands sales, but successfully keeps the peace between sales and marketing.
In case this is your first time listening to our podcast, a little background context as to why we're called Ashley and Katrina's Infinite Revenue Playlist. Our podcast was inspired by the concept of having a walk-up song, since as customer-facing professionals tied to revenue, we're often compared to athletes. So the walk-up song is meant to be something that pumps you up before you step out onto the field, or in our case, before you walk into work and crush your day. So we can't play our songs live on the show, unfortunately, but there is an actual playlist. You can check it on Spotify. And Trinity's song will be joining that very shortly. So with that in mind, Trinity, what is your walk-up song?
Mine is Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons. I could come up with some made-up reason why it's so relevant to revenue role, but really during COVID, I started running, and that's the only song that can actually get my heart beat up and endure the pain that's called running. If I can make up an excuse, like whatever it takes, right? I'm in startup. Every day is like, you got to do whatever it takes in the bounds of like legal and, kindness people. But like basically it's just grit and perseverance and, you got to fight for your chance to be on top. So that's, I just made that up on the spot.
No, I could imagine an SDR listening to that to make it through some cold calls and pump them up or something like that. Just like you listen to it to make it through running.
That's exactly what a walk-up song is supposed to be. So it's a great choice. And I think we kind of pulled a couple lyrics that I think are really relevant. One of them is, because I love the adrenaline in my veins, I do whatever it takes. That's definitely something that happens in sales and I assume marketing too. So yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we also have the pipeline number. So like sales is at the pipeline. We also like at the UserGems from the marketing side, we also look at the revenue number as well. So the adrenaline is real. And when we really do whatever it takes to get there together as a team.
Speaking of adrenaline and doing whatever it takes to get there as a team, I think that's a great segue into what we're going to be asking you about today, which is creating alignment specifically between sales and marketing. I think maybe some people listening get adrenaline when they think about having to talk to the other department or collaborate, because I think there's sometimes a bit of a dark history between those two departments. They love to point fingers at each other and claim it's their fault for not generating enough revenue, pipeline leads, you name it. So we're really excited that you're going to be talking specifically about how we can actually create alignment between those two departments. But before we do that, we'd love to hear a little bit about you from yourself and where you're currently at and what you're currently doing at UserGems.
Yeah. So I am leading the marketing team, and the way we structure the marketing team at UserGems is we have both the marketing side and also the account development side. So our company, we're very account based from day one. So that's why we call the team ADR instead of SDR, which to this day still confuse a lot of people when I talk to them. I don't know why, but yeah, that's the team we have here. And within marketing, we have the typical, like demand generation, content, social, etc.
I've actually never heard that term before, ADR.
See?
Yeah, I
That's
love
another
it. It
one.
makes sense, but I've never heard it before.
Yeah, you
I
see like
actually-
SDR and BDR quite a bit. Sorry, Ashley.
No, I had a really weird job title one time. I was a customer account development rep, and I was basically an expansion account executive, but
Yeah.
that was the title they gave me. So I have heard of people using the account, but it makes sense if you're looking at it from that marketing standpoint and sort of starting out with ABM. Is that what you're
Mhm.
describing? Is not just
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we started out like from beginning, and we can get into this too, but we could start out from beginning instead of like doing a typical like building outbound or like a lot of advertising. We started with ABM because we don't have a lot of we were bootstrap. So
Yeah.
how do we make the most out of the resource we have, but be as precise as possible with just a Google Sheet and a PowerPoint, right? Like no fancy tools. So we started out with like, here are the accounts that we know will be a good fit for us. And that's the beginning of our go-to-market motion. So that's what we have ADR. It's good.
I
Here's the
love that.
accounts.
Smart. Definitely smart. So you're one of the first marketing guests that we've had on. We mentioned that a minute ago. So we love that we can get some new perspective. Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on the way the relationship between sales and marketing should be? Because I know you have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think so. Like what Katrina mentioned earlier, like that's I don't. It sounds so sad. There's a little bit of like a dark history, right? Like a lot of
Yeah.
a little bit of a pointing fingers. I think it's also because of the how like teams are incentivized, how the leaders are incentivized, how like basically agenda is set up for each team. So it kind of like the whole pointing finger. It's not because we don't like our partners personally, but it's more like, well, if my team's measured like this and you're measured like that, and I'm going to use different tools and like CRM to help me do my job. And at some point, because it's two different systems and two different go-to-market motions, things going to look different. Like the sales leader can go to the board and say, like, this is the pipeline number I see. And the marketing is like, nope, actually, I look at the attribution. This is the pipeline number that I see. That's when things start like spiral out of control. And then going on the whole thing, like this is kind of like the reason why we started day one with account based, because I saw this kind of history. Even though the leaders got along well personally, it's just the way the system set up and how we go to market didn't incentivize people to work together. So from day one, I remember asking my CEO, I was like, hey, if we're going to do ABM, then I think it makes sense that the ADR team is within the marketing team, because I don't want a situation where my demand side is going to be, let's run, get a bunch of leads. We don't care where the leads come from and pass it over the fence just because it hits enough points because we like bombard them with ads and whatnot, right? And then the ADR side can't work on them. And then that's going to spiral out of control when we grow. So I told him, like, let's make sure that both sides in the same team so that there's no pointing finger or credits. I'm going to build an incentive structure where it's not like, oh, this is marketing point or this is ADR point. If we bring in that account, both of you are going to get the credit. And that's why. So we kind of like trying to set up where the top of the funnel is marketing source, almost to 100%. Our AEs still do prospecting, and I want our AEs to do prospecting. It's a skill you don't want to lose, but majority is kind of like marketing source. And then we as a team figured out how to give credits, but I don't want fighting over like,
Yeah.
So that's how we started out.
So for the teams that don't have their ADRs, SDRs sitting under marketing and they're sitting under the sales function, do you suggest that they should have the same pipeline goals as marketing to create more alignment? Or how can they fix that without physically moving their SDRs over to the marketing department?
Yeah, so this one is hard. When you talk about incentives, they like, well, show me the incentives and I'll show you how people will behave. So it's not necessary that the SDR need to roll up within marketing. Right? I think the SDR team should roll up with whoever the leaders and has the time, bandwidth, and expertise to support you. I think that's just realistic. But alignment type of incentive. So like from also day one, I told the CEO as well in the same conversation, I think to make sure that we stay aligned, I want my commission. I also have like the bonus commission, everything on my role to tie to the revenue. My team doesn't have MQL goal. We have a self-accepted pipeline, but my demand person, my head of demand gen, also look at revenue because he cares actually about a lot more about revenue than top of funnel. And then we kind of work backward. So I think tie the marketing incentives to revenue is step one to make sure the two team align. Because if conflict's gonna happen, and it should, but at least my sales partner is gonna know that I care about the same thing. When things get heated, well, at least we know that each other's heart in the right place because we're trying to get to that same goal. So I think that's step one. And then like the rest kind of like follow. Doesn't matter which side the SDR team sits.
Besides your typical like pipeline generation or leads and revenue goals, are there any other specific KPIs or OKRs you think those two teams should be talking about constantly together? I know those are the two big ones, right? Pipeline generation and revenue. But I feel like sometimes there could be smaller ones that we don't necessarily think of off the bat that could improve kind of collaboration if they're both thinking about it together.
There are a lot, actually. I'll name a few that come to mind. So I think right now, so like the market is a little bit trickier. So the post-sales world's a little bit tricky, right? Like sometimes people see huge success, but if the budget, the CFO on their end say cut everything by half, then like our CSM right now, if you see your CSM, please give them a hug. It's every new renewal is like a hostage negotiation. That's what I heard. So for us now, when we work together, a lot of our conversation, so we just talked about like qualification for our ADR, like how can we like improve, update our qualification to make sure that it's not that the AEs spend the most time on most qualified. That one's straightforward. But we also pull in the CS leader as well, because now we want to know what type of account makes a good customer. So that we bring that into the qualification. So it's not just sales and marketing anymore. When we talk a lot about alignment, it's sales, marketing, and customer success. Because otherwise, like in a good time in 2021, like just bring everyone in and then find that they churn, we have new ones coming in. But actually, that's not a very healthy way to think about business, right? So now it's actually a three-legged stool when we discuss about qualifications. I think that's step one. Like not step one, but one thing.
Do you do partnerships too? I know you're a pretty small team.
Yes.
You do? Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I saw something recently about UserGems partnering with Catalyst, which is, I think, in line with what you're talking about right now. And I'm wondering if that was like extra strategic since you're noticing this trend.
I don't want to take credit. I think Catalyst is kind of like the ones that spearheading the customer-led growth. I mean, like Gainsight as well, the CSM side. So they started the conversation first. And I think that made a lot of sense. So we kind of like do the partnership. And I think that it just makes sense. Like, if you forget all about like the KPI, OKR and whatnot, just think about if you were running a business, what would you do? Like, how would you structure it? And you want the team to speak together so you don't waste time and resources of building relationship with a customer that you know is a bad fit. They're unhappy, you're unhappy, and then they churn anyway. So right now, there's a lot of alignment across the entire revenue team.
I think typically when I speak to a lot of teams where they are really struggling for the relationship between sales and marketing, a lot of times it comes down to communication and just lack of it or lack of sufficient communication. And I'm curious if there's any tips or best practices you have around for building better communication between those two departments for anyone moving forward.
That's hard. I mean, sure. Talk to
There's
each
no
other
one
more.
size fits all, for sure.
I mean, and like we're a 100% remote company. So it's really hard for us, to be honest. I'm not going to lie and say like, yeah, like schedule more Zoom calls. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
In the old days, it's like, oh, just if I'm upset at my partner about something, I'm like, let's just grab a drink across the street and then we can work this out. And that usually kind of help things. To be honest, I don't think anything in the virtual world can improve the communication. I think you'd really have to go back into the old way of building relationship in person. So it's weird for our generation, like the Zoom generation, to think about it. But I remember that I've seen people would fly to where the other person is, make a trip out of it and say, hey, let's just grab dinner. Nothing's gonna beat that kind of interaction. And same applies to customers and prospects too. Once I get a dinner with you and grab a drink with you, there's no way I'm gonna think as badly about you.
Yeah.
Like we might be pissed at each other sometimes, but at least there's some foundation that you can overcome. You can't do that with Zoom.
So note to anyone at UserGems, if you ever think Trinity's mad at you, fly to her and take her out to dinner.
You can always ride me with food and drink, so there's that too.
I think it's a really good call out, Trinity, because I do think that I've worked remote for a long time, and it's like a non-starter for me because I have kids and I can't just like the benefits outweigh the negative. But I also love having dinner with somebody or drinks and like getting to know somebody on a personal level. And so I think sometimes the argument is against, people use that as an argument against remote work, but I think we can do both. And I think it's okay to have the world where we are working remote for our everyday life, but we intentionally come up with ways to interact in person too. And I think that's a good call out because communication is hard. And it's really nice when you get to actually, Katrina and I have never met in real life. And we collaborate on a lot of things together. But like someday we're going to have a sleepover and we're going to talk about all the things that we've never talked about before. And it's going to be really lovely. So,
and I'll be like, I thought you were taller.
I'm only 5'3", so I'm sorry.
I'm 5'4" in case you're wondering.
Oh, we're fine. We're about the same.
We're not going to the height conversation, okay? I'm going to be stay
just like
I'm very tiny. But actually, it's not a new thing. Like I used to work for a very large enterprise, and in those companies, you work with your partners across continent. So it wasn't out of the ordinary that someone be like, "Hey, I'm traveling my family to like London or something. Can we meet up or something?" They will make a trip out of it and squeeze that in. Like if there's a will, there's a way. So it's not like, oh, we got to do it now because of Zoom world. No, people do it. That's how you build relationship. If I'm willing to fly to like cross country to meet with a potential customers, why am I not willing to do that with you, who I work with way more often?
Yeah.
So money is an issue, but then like, if you're going to travel somewhere, make a trip out of it. Like for us, we remote internationally. So we have this Google map and everyone put a pin on where they live. So if someone traveled, then be like, hey, want to grab something?
Oh, that's a cute idea.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I'll say for the times where travel is not an option, I do think intentionality is key, right? Just being super intentional with over communicating what you're working on, what you're doing, where you need help. I think also showing interest across the table, right? Saying, hey, I'm a salesperson. Hello, fellow marketer. I'm very interested to see what you're doing, and vice versa. I think that's the best way to get to know each other and get more respect for what the other team is doing as well. And also just having some grace.
Yeah. Or we have some team members that just randomly select different people that they don't usually work with and say, hey, what you working on? Kind of like what Katrina just said. Like, can we just chat about like something? And they can talk about like family, kids, hobbies, like anything but work. And that's like that could work too. But it's hard to orchestrate it as a team leader, right? This individual organic, because it feels more real instead of like me like, hey team, each of you meet up and have a donut date or coffee date. It doesn't seem right.
This is kind of silly, but so our team at Comstar is also fully remote. We've always been remote. We don't even have the option of an office. And I used to host like a monthly virtual social for success, marketing, and sales. And we would do silly things like 2 truths and a lie. And like people had to really double down on their lies and like make up a story for it. And I did see that once we had these more like cohesive, fun moments together, it was so much easier to reach across the table and work together and just collaborate. So I think really
that.
like the personal getting to know each other also opens up that door for better collaboration.
Yeah. If you're free at some point, can you facilitate our session?
I'd love to.
I have a suggestion. I just experienced virtual drag bingo for the first time ever. My company did this
Nice.
yesterday. It was last night. I work at Seismic, and we do have offices, but I have literally been to the office here in Chicago one time. So it's not like it's there, but it's not a requirement at all. And we have people all over the world. So we just opened an office in China. Like, there's got to be a way to bring the team together, even if they are in offices. And this drag bingo was so fun, so interactive. The host is someone from RuPaul's drag show,
Oh, wow.
and they. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not going to assume the pronouns there. This person was taking people off mute and just like giving them a hard time, random people, and it
I
was
love
so fun and a little bit uncomfortable, and it was very different from anything I've done via Zoom before. So highly suggest, even if it's not Pride Month, I think it's a very good
That sounds
option.
awesome. Was it like, did your company book through like Airbnb experience or?
I'm not sure, but I can probably find that out for you.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds fun. I heard of that like that experience before. We just haven't booked it, but it sounds awesome. I love the fact that the person, like the host, also take people off mute.
Yeah,
Put them on the spot.
Yes.
Them on the spot a little bit. Yeah.
it was really fun, and it was also, like I said, a little bit uncomfortable. But once
Mhm.
you kind of feel a little vulnerable, I think you're more
Mhm.
likely to then feel more comfortable with people.
Yeah. Also, like the size of the group too. Like we talk about communication. Like if you want to build collaboration between the two teams, like say ADR and AE, like I think breaking into like pods is better than bringing both teams together because it gets too big. Once it's too big, then you're gonna have people that stay quiet or like not as engaged. It's harder to actually build the relationship and get to know each other. So there's a rule of two pizzas. Like
Yes.
however big it is, like 6 to 8 people. That two pizza can feed that group, and that's the size of the pod.
Not to
Mm.
plug a ComStore product or anything, but that is one of the things that we're heavily invested in because we're obviously all about building community and go to network, as we call it. And one of our products, Meetsy, which is going through a bit of a rebrand, is all about connecting people, right? Whether it's like one-on-one, 1, 2, 3, but in meaningful ways so that they do build those kind of connections they're missing from the remote work life.
Mm. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard as a team member. It's hard as a manager too in the remote world. So I'll check it out.
Yeah, it was really fun. So I'm going to get back to our topic a little
We
bit.
went a little off topic, but that's okay.
Just a little bit. So I think one of the things that you've been vocal about is being a marketer that understands sales. And I want to dig in a little bit on that. Like, how did you come to be a marketer that understands sales? What's the background that led to that? And why do you think that that's important?
Mm. I think understands might be a little bit of an exaggeration because I feel like there's always someone who knows sales way more than I do. I think my background, my background is like I was product marketing. And a part of a product marketing is you work really closely with the sales team. So you did like sales enablement, persona training, etc. And also like my last company, the way we structure it was pretty smart. Like the marketing team sat right next to the ADR and AE. So I overhear like how the calls go, how they talk about it. So, and this is like also like I'm very interested in being close to the front line, like where the deal happens, how you sign a deal, and basically I want to be close to revenue. So I think that's kind of like the background of how I got the interest to learn how sales team works, what the sales process looks like. And that's it. And I bring all that to the marketing side. Actually, most of some of our best performing campaigns or ideas will copy from the sales team.
Interesting.
Because to be honest, it's the sales reps or like sales rep broadly, like SDR too, like talk to the target market the most every single day. Whatever copy or positioning or talk track that the marketing team gives them, they're going to iterate like 1,000 times on a weekly basis. So they know what works. So why are you as a like marketer, not using that as a resource to improve your messaging? It's going to make your job a lot better. So I listen to a lot of gum calls so that I can see the AEs kind of tweaking our messaging from call to call. And the moment it lands, I'm like, this is it. I bring it to the homepage.
So you're actually seeing, I was going to ask how these AEs are getting their ideas to you. So you're listening to their calls.
Gong call is the best ones. We very active on Slack.
Mhm.
I ping the revenue team all the time. I think I'm an oversharer. So I just ping them and tag them on everything. So the people, when they have like ideas, they also tell me as well in Slack. But like I listen to Gong calls on Fridays usually when I do like exercise or cooking or something. It's like a playlist. And just to see how AEs explain our product. But also the most interesting part is how prospects describe it back.
Mm.
Because that's the language that we should use on our website and email, etc. Mm.
I think
That's
you're
a
not
good
giving
point.
yourself enough credit for how much you understand sales, because that right there is pretty key.
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated. I think sales is a really, really hard job. It's so hard. I can't sell a pen for like to save my life. So I can play around with copy and get people excited about it, but to get someone to take an action, I think it's hard. And then be able to handle with the amount of stress, and a lot of things are out of control. So I mean, Katrina, you like Ashley, you both know it. I don't know why I'm saying all this stuff. You guys live and breathing this, so
I
it's
would like to argue though.
hard.
I refer to marketing sometimes as like the silent sellers, and then sellers are like the vocal sellers, right? Because you're creating the content that someone sees to get them excited to go explore and educate themselves about your company and eventually request a demo or actually say yes to when that salesperson sends them a cold email or a cold call. You're also doing research, helping the sales team to stay ahead of competitors and gathering intel and feedback by listening to recorded calls, right? And helping towards goal achievement. So really, I'd say you're doing like 70% of the selling and we're covering about 30% of the closing.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a team sports, right?
Yeah,
So
100%.
like bringing in, I think that as marketers, we know different levers and ways to kind of like get people excited, aware, and bring them in. But we usually not the one that close, unless you're like B2C, then you get people to make a purchase right there. But I think I'm just genuinely fascinated with how sales does it, like all the different techniques. I mean, multi-threading is something that I always knew like years ago. Now a lot of marketers are talking about multi-threading, but like I think it was 3 years now, whenever a deal becomes like whenever we had an open opportunity, like late stage, like we always had a multi-threaded ads to nurture people through. But a lot of marketers and other companies, they kind of like focusing on bringing people in, pass the baton over to sales, and then kind of that's it. But I'm like, well, we have the automation and we have the ability to like surround people at all time. Why are we not using that to also nurturing the opportunities through so that so they win quicker and sooner? So if they do that, they win, we win too.
I think that right now, you mentioned earlier, it's a very hard world to be selling into. It's different. And I think a lot of the more successful salespeople that I know have invested in like learning a couple little marketing techniques themselves and building their own little personal brand and funnel and all of that. So I think the lines are getting blurred between sales and marketing in a way that they maybe weren't before. But I think that idea right there is really cool. Because I know a lot of salespeople who I've been in this situation before where you've got a lead that comes in, you start an opportunity, but the automation for marketing is messed up and you're getting like half of your prospects, people at the account you have an opportunity, are getting cold emails basically from marketing, like as if they don't have like, and then the communication isn't there. And that could be why people aren't doing what you're describing, because like as a seller, I'm protective and I don't want marketing to reach out and like mess up my opportunity by treating my people like we don't know that they already have this conversation going. So I think it's really interesting that you're doing that in an intentional way. That's not what I just described.
But I think that goes back to the communication, right? Like I didn't turn it on just because like, oh, let's just turn it on. I actually talked to the sales team as well. And then that's when we want to make sure that the wires don't get crossed. Like we're not emailing anybody if there's open opportunity in that account, right? But what are some ways that marketing can do that is like not interfere with that? It's just kind of like, oh, this is our ongoing program. So advertising is the softest touch. You don't have to read our ads. You can scroll right past it. But it reminds you of like, oh, this company I just talked to. So once like a multi-threading for marketers is not that the same as multi-threading for sales. It's more like, how do I keep the brand and top of mind all the time. So hopefully it reduces the chance of like when dark, ghosting situation. Yeah. And then the events, so if you have events, then hey, we're in town, we're doing this. Why don't you come out and grab a drink with us?
So, in a time that is more difficult to sell than ever, as Ashley mentioned, what marketing tactics have you noticed are performing best right now to build
Oh,
pipeline and get more eyeballs on the company?
oh man, it's hard because like whatever I say that works best now, by tomorrow it's gonna be,
I'll
you
jinx it.
know,
Right.
yeah. Because like by the time you know that it's best, it's too many people already do it, and then that channel become kind of fatigued. But actually, you mentioned about the personal branding. I think this is something also kind of tied back to how do teams work together. So for us, like one of our OKRs is we want to be seen everywhere. Like we want this sound bites recorded on Gong. Like when they say like, oh yeah, we keep seeing you guys everywhere. So that's our OKR. And in order to do that, it's not just a marketing job to like run advertise. We don't have that much money.
Right.
Mhm.
But it's a social, like personal branding, because we think that for us, we sell to sales and marketers, and most of our ICP happen to be on LinkedIn. Sure, the company can be like cheeky with memes and stuff, but at the end of the day, if I'm an SDR or I'm a salesperson or CSM, I need to have some kind of brand so that people like me as a person, so that they're more likely to respond to my emails. So for us, like personal brand is part of the onboarding process for all employees. As you start onboarding, we're gonna go in there and help you to get your voice out there. It's uncomfortable for most people, like me included, and our CEO too. But once you get used to it, then they become just like, oh, this is kind of nice. So we do it for multiple reasons. So the first part is we want everyone to have something tangible that they can take with when they depart. And this is something that no school or anybody is going to teach you. So that's one. Second, selfishly, I think for them, it will increase their chance to connect with their prospect and customer. We've seen this over and over all the time.
Mhm.
And then the third one is for the company. Like by proxy, people are going to see the name UserGems on their title. And most of our employees don't post about UserGems. They post about how they do their job, things they learn to help other people, right? But then by proxy, people are going to start seeing UserGems. So we benefit too. So that's something that we work together as the company. And that's the alignment part. And then also with the personal branding thing. And to answer your question, Katrina, I think this is the best channel right now. It's really hard to
Yeah,
do it well.
I
It is.
agree. I will say, I think one, it's really cool that you're investing in teaching each of your employees to build their own personal brand. One, because it benefits the company, but two, because they can take it with themselves. And I think a lot of companies are slowly starting to immerse themselves in this, but I think you're the first time I've heard you've actually made an OKR tied to that, right? Like recording. How many times are people saying like, "Oh, I see you everywhere. I've
Yeah.
heard of you." I think that's really cool that you guys are really putting your money where your mouth is in terms of leaning into the personal brands as a true marketing channel.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's also going to help you hire the best people too. And I say
Yeah.
that because when I intentionally chose to go to Lessonly, part of it was because I was wanting to invest in my personal brand, and the people I was selling to were not on LinkedIn. And I was attracted to the ICP that was on LinkedIn so that I could build
Mm.
that brand. And when I started at Lessonly, like my engagements and everything rocketed up because that brand aligned with what I cared about. And I think
Mhm.
people who are cognizant of that are going to be this, not tooting my own horn, but the smarter sellers care about those things, right? Like the smart sellers are making sure their opportunity lines up with what their personal goals are. So UserGems is going to have a step up when you're trying to get good talent, because you can tell them like, hey, yeah, we're also going to get you more exposure and we're going to get your name out there. And that's important to some people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's always a debate of like, well, is building personal brand really worth it? Like, do you want to, how much time do you want your team member to spend on this? Because at the end of the day, we do have a job, like an actual job that pays a W-2, right? So it's hard. I think this is something that we need to figure out on our time, like what's the right time to do it. For us, like we think of like our team as we all adults. We know what's matter. We know how to manage our time. And then the company will support it. And then some people write like once a week, once every other week. like, it doesn't have to be all the time, always on. Like, certain people have a goal to become like an author or an actual like content creator as a like a main career. So they post like 2-3 times a day. And I understand that, but that's different, right? That's the outlier. Like, some people just want to get your voice out there. I don't think personal brand is bad. Like, some people kind of shame it that it's about, oh, vain, you want to be famous and all that stuff. I think it's more like, in the Zoom world, I'm not going to have as much time of meeting my peers and talk to them about the things that I care about. So me writing on my LinkedIn is sometimes, like, for me, it's kind of like a diary, kind of like, oh, this is what I learned.
Mhm.
But then maybe it helped another me 2-3 years ago where I wish I had read something like this. So, and it helped me connect with somebody. Otherwise, I don't know how I'm going to make friends in this world, in the Zoom world.
Yep.
So
Also, customers and prospects want to get to know you. We're not buying from companies anymore. We're buying from people, right? And I would
exactly.
rather buy from an Ashley or a Trinity who says they love, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
books and
Yeah.
tennis or whatever it is. And I also love books and tennis. I don't really love tennis.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said that. But, I'm more inclined to reach out to you and say, like, oh, I saw you're at UserGems and
Yeah.
you're also into reading fantasy books. Like, let's chat,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So I think it's a
It's
good
kind
call
of
out
like
that,
this. It's kind of like the small talks when you meet with
yeah,
customer or prospects. You're trying to actually get to know the person as a person. So
it's
I
just
think the personal
happening a
brand,
little
same thing.
sooner now in the sales
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is
it's
so
true.
much more fun to have a conversation with someone when you already have a baseline of who they are. And I wish my team had an OKR that recorded when people mention LinkedIn, because people mention my posts all the time on calls, like customer calls,
Yeah.
even if they've never engaged with it. So, like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
They've never liked it, they've never commented, but they'll bring it
Yeah.
up on a sales call, which is
Yeah.
super interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, you don't need to have an OKR for it. Like, as a company, you can start it. Just put a keyword and gong, and then see how often it gets mentioned. And then bring that up, aggregate to your team or something. And I think people will start noticing it.
That's a good takeaway, I think, for
Mm.
people who are listening
Yeah.
to this that happen to be trying to build a brand.
So pivoting a little bit, this is a Women in Revenue podcast. So we specifically want to elevate the voices of women in different revenue roles. So we typically like to ask about our guests' experience as a woman in revenue, whether there's a specific story you have to share or any advice you want to share with the listeners who are also women in revenue roles.
Oh, man. Advice means I have to already figure, like, I have already figured it out. I don't think I figured it out yet.
No, you
So
don't have to have it
I
figured
don't think,
out.
I don't think I have an advice, but I think early on, well, I'm in marketing. So I think there are more female, I think there's more diversity on the marketing side of the house. On the revenue world, so like of sales, I definitely see a little bit less. Having said that, though, I think companies should just try a little bit harder. A lot of time, I think a lot of like high performing female or like non-male reps, at some points, they actually left that career path because of other obligations. I think it's on the companies to make sure that they can build an environment that conducive and attractive so that high performing non-male reps can still like stay and perform, right? Because, like, why is it the only team out of the entire revenue team where diversity is a question mark? Because you look at CSM, is different. We also have like CFM also has a number, and then marketing also has a pipeline number too. In a way, have a quota. But why sales? Like, why is it? Is it because I don't want to go into that path, but please
I
that.
I think that
Like, why
that's
sales?
a really good call out, and I was curious about that too. I don't know the diversity numbers in marketing or CS versus sales, and I think it's a really good call out. So
Well,
thank you.
but most of you are in sales, so
Yeah.
I think, like, you know what it's like, and when you don't see a lot of representation of you as, like, say, female CRO, female VP of sales, makes it harder to imagine how I'm gonna get, like, figure out this path there, right? Like, what do I need to sacrifice? Can I have it all? So I think that's the part where I don't have personal experience on that side, so I don't know. From the marketing side, I think there's more diversity. I've seen female and male non-binary leaders on the marketing side. So I think it's a little bit easier. But sales, I really think the company needs to have a harder look at that.
I like it. Do better. Companies do better.
Do better companies. Well, really, like for us personally, like from our experience, so we would bootstrap 6 of us. So we hired our first 4 sales rep, 5 actually, all men. And we tried really hard. Like we talked about this all the time. Our CEO is even like making fun of us, like, guys, we need to find female candidates. We even adopted, I think, either Amazon or Netflix approach where for the sales team, we did like a blind process where if it's a female candidate, we accelerate that applicant to a later stage. I don't remember which one. At the end though, like not the end, but like at that stage, you still have to prove that the skill set's the same. Like from that point on, then you have to compete on like merit base. But then we don't want to screen out anything based on like because we don't want to have any biases and like, because they had to like take a few years off because of family, children, whatever, right? So we accelerate that. But even so, it was really hard to get female candidates to the end because we were early stage, risky. A lot of people have family or want to start family, so it's a little bit of that. So it was challenging, but now I think we're getting better. I think like 30 or 40% of our sales team are female. So like, yes,
It's good.
and now we're moving to engineer.
There you go. That one's going to be harder, I think.
A lot harder. Yeah.
We're getting to the end, so we need to ask you your women in revenue would you rather questions.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to expand on your answers if you don't want to. You can just pick one, but totally can if you want. All right. There's 5 of them. We'll start with the first one. You said you were ready, so let's go. Okay. Would you rather prioritize data-driven decision-making or rely more on intuition and creative instincts?
Data.
Data? Okay, cool. Would you rather focus on inbound marketing strategies or outbound marketing strategies?
Outbound.
Ooh.
That's why I love sales.
No hesitation.
Yeah, no hesitation.
She knew.
Love that. Okay. All right. Now we're getting a little spicy. Would you rather halt all LinkedIn posts and brand building for the people on your team or never get to pay for an ad on any channel ever again?
What? Wait. Say it again.
So no personal branding, no LinkedIn for your people, or you don't get to pay for ads on any channel ever again.
Dang, well, this is hard. I think I would pick the. Like which one I would pick? Oh, this is hard. I can't choose.
Okay, we'll let you take a pass, but I think this
is hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you rather hire people for your marketing team that have 0 experience but are super creative, or hire people with tons of experience but have no creativity? So they're basically robots.
First one.
Okay.
First
All
one.
right.
Yeah, I love hiring like from B2C. Like we have a lot of like cross industry, and I think that they bring experience and like point of view that you usually don't see in B2B. So it's awesome.
Okay. Cool. I love that. All right, last one. Would you? I also got a little bit of help for this one from someone on your team, just so you know.
Amber.
Nope, not Amber. I wonder if you'll be able to tell when you hear it. Okay. Would you rather only be allowed to eat plain Cheerios for a year or change UserGems brand color from teal to light brown for eternity?
Oh, dude. Plain cereals or
plain Cheerios?
The first one. Did you say light brown? Oh my God.
It says, light brown for eternity.
Good God. Who came up with it?
You can thank Derek for that one.
Oh my God. Light brown. Gosh. No, I don't want to be sitting next to like a poop emoji, okay? No.
Everyone changes from a gem to a poop emoji on LinkedIn. Can you imagine?
No. God.
You guys should do it for April Fools this year.
That would be amazing.
God,
there you go.
I like my job right now.
Well, Trinity, thank you so much for joining us. I know we covered a whole host of topics from creating marketing and sales alignment, to communication, to team building tactics, to Cheerios and light brown for UserGems. But we thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate all of your candid answers and sharing your experience and insights with us.
No, thank you. It's fun. Thanks for putting up with my random rambling on a Thursday.
Oh, I love it.
We love it.
So I hope it makes sense. Thank you for whoever listening to all the way to the end.
So just to wrap up, the whole purpose of this podcast is to elevate the voices of women in revenue. And it's really important for us to talk about ways we can all work together in harmony. So your ideas for alignment across revenue teams are amazing. We appreciate having you on to talk about it. And for those listening, if you want to follow Trinity on LinkedIn, you can look her up there, especially if you want to look into UserGems' mission. And of course, if you want to listen to her song, Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons, as well as the walk-up songs of all of our other guests, you can find her playlist on Spotify by searching for Ashley and Katrina's Infinite Revenue Playlist. See you next time and keep supporting each other out there, ladies. Bye.
Thank you.
Yay.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Ashley and Katrina's Infinite Revenue Playlist. This show is powered by Comsor, the go-to-network company. Comsor is the complete suite of tools for teams looking to grow, activate, and engage their networks. If you enjoyed the learnings and banter in this episode, there's more where this came from. Follow Ashley and Katrina's Infinite Revenue Playlist wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. See you next time.